Tennessee Life is sponsored by Next to New, an upscale consignment shop serving Knoxville. nexttonewknox.com. And by The Flower Pot, for over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations. knoxvilleflowerpot.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Coming up on Tennessee Life, the sweet smells and the taste of lavender take center stage in Oak Ridge. We talk with an herb grower about how she helped start the Lavender Festival.
Such a beloved ancient herb. It has so many uses. Lavender packs it all into one just beautiful plant.
A Tennessee-born doctor talks about his path to becoming one of the state's most popular docs. Dr. Bob talks about his television show and his family legacy of practicing medicine.
I loved my father, and I loved the stories that he would talk about in medicine.
This is where welding and horticulture come together to make art. We go inside Topiary Joe's Tennessee workshop. Those stories are next on Tennessee Life.
Thanks for joining us for Tennessee Life. I'm Vicki Lawson. It's that time of year in Tennessee when life takes us outdoors. There really is no excuse to stay in. Just about every weekend it seems there is a festival dedicated to a local harvest, including herbs. The sweet scents from the Oak Ridge Lavender Festival have been drawing in crowds for 16 years. We met up with a local herb grower to talk about how the event got started and why it seems people always want more of the lavender plant year after year.
Such a beloved ancient herb. It has so many uses, whether it's for fragrance, for healing, for beauty, for color, for wildlife. Lavender packs it all into one just beautiful plant.
Lavender is the most wonderful herb that there is. It's called a medicine kit in a bottle. There are a million uses for lavender.
The Lavender Festival is definitely one of those, scratch and sniff and smell sort of festivals, because it's the aroma that makes us so happy and is so de-stressing. So the sun actually does liberate the oil from the flowers. So in the height of the heat of the day, the lavender oil is liberated from the flower, and you can smell it from your front porch if you have it planted nearby, or if you're sitting on your patio and you have a container lavender, it is liberated nicely by the sun. So yeah, you definitely feel, see people all the time smelling and, sniffing things at the festival. That's a big part of it. I'm Kathy Burke-Mahalzo, and I'm the owner of Aaron's Meadow Herb Farm. And in 1999, I was one of the co-founders of the Oak Ridge Lavender Festival. We first got the idea of our Lavender Festival now in its 16th year. It was a suggestion from a client and friend who had been to another Lavender Festival in the United States. I believe it was out west. And she was an avid herb gardener and lover of, all fragrant, wonderful herbs. And she suggested to Barbara Farrell and I that we start a lavender festival. I had all the lavender plants, and Barbara had all the soaps and lotions and lavender potions, and we put those two components together, and it was a success from the very start. The community loved it. They responded so strongly to this wonderful idea of a lavender festival. And we chose 1999 because the International Herb Association had designated lavender Herb of the Year. The Lavender Festival really resonated with the East Tennessee community because it is such a beloved plant. It really is. I think that's why. I think because it has so many uses, because at the Lavender Festival you will find lavender plants, but you'll find wonderful creations for your skin and hair and your body made with lavender. You'll find healing ingredients made with lavender. It's such a versatile and lovely herb. So I think it really was because of the lavender itself. So I'm not sure maybe another herb could have brought the power and the beauty and the magic that lavender brings to this festival. This year, the International Herb Association has designated Artemisia as Herb of the Year, which is a wonderful genus of plants that includes French tarragon, the common wormwood, mugwort. And so this is a very interesting genus for us this year. This year has been a challenge because the festival is based around a plant and growing a plant. And of course, East Tennessee this year, the winter of 2013 and 2014 really packed a wallop. And it really killed off a lot of older lavender plants. In some respects, many lavender growers are starting over this year. But that's okay, you never give up on lavender. The English lavenders, which are known as the Lavendula angustifolias, are wonderful plants here in East Tennessee. And some of our favorites then would be the Hidcote lavender. Is a great medium-sized lavender with a beautiful dark flower, and it's a real winner for gardens here in East Tennessee. And then we also like a larger lavender called Grosso, which produces huge spikes, beautiful blue flowers, and is very hardy and has a very nice winter appearance. So Aaron's Meadow Herb Farm is celebrating its 19th year in business, and the herb farm is located here in Anderson County in East Tennessee. And our main product here, our main offering is our herb plants. We have 3 large greenhouses where we grow all types of herbs. We have display gardens that you can tour and see the herbs in their mature state. And then we have a wonderful herb shop where we offer everything herbal. And so we're like this little mecca of the herbal world here in East Tennessee. I always tell people it's like a hobby gone wild, and it's just something that, you know, I always wanted to pursue because I had the ambition after working in the horticulture industry to have my own space, to have my own garden. I just always loved being outside and loved being in the garden. So it seemed like, hey, maybe I can make a business out of this. And so lo and behold, here I am. I'm really just so thankful and happy and proud to have been part of, you know, starting this wonderful lavender festival in Oak Ridge. We had no idea when it started that it would be going 16 years later and growing each year. And we've turned it over to the Jackson Square Merchants Association, and they've done a wonderful job handling it over these years. But honestly, who knew?
The number of vendors continues to grow. So there's a huge selection. And I think what's especially neat is the link from farm to table in the festival itself. You see a lot of vendors that are using natural oils, natural materials that they grow in vending. So that really ties the two together.
I've been growing lavender since 2002. My lavender farm is in Dungannon, Virginia, but my home is actually in Gray, Tennessee. A lot of people don't realize that lavender is an herb that you can eat. In Europe, they cook with lavender on a daily basis, just like we would use ginger or garlic or something like that. So I want people to realize that it's not just a flower. We have lavender tea, lavender lemonade, plus I have a full line. I have lavender sugar, which is one of my most popular items, and you can use that sugar in anything that you would use sugar in. I think the biggest thing I love is the feeling that I get from it of calm and peace, and the feeling that everything is right with the world.
Later on Tennessee Live, see how Topiary Joe turns plants and blooms into art that is showcased all over the world. It all starts in his Tellico Plains workshop. And next, Dr. Bob Oberholt on fighting those Tennessee allergies and how family and athletics shaped him into the man we call Dr. Bob.
As much as we enjoy getting outdoors in Tennessee, sometimes allergy attacks get in the way. Lucky for us, we have a doctor on call to help us feel better. We call him Dr. Bob, and he has been helping keep people healthy in his hometown of Knoxville for more than 4 decades. Dr. Bob Oberholt has also been dedicated to getting health information to people beyond the doctor's office with his Dr. Bob television program. That approach helped him earn the Tennessee Medical Association's Distinguished Service Award. He has also seen his practice grow to 20 locations spanning Tennessee, Kentucky, and Georgia. Dr. Bob talked to us about how practicing medicine has become a family tradition and why he always wanted to keep his Tennessee roots. Dr. Bob, thanks so much for joining us today, and we already know that you have a lot of medical expertise that you share on your show, but we want you to share a little bit of your Tennessee life with us today. I'm curious, when did you first know that you wanted to go into medicine?
I always knew from early childhood. My father was a physician, and he was a kind man and a revered person in the practice of medicine. So I would see him leave home very early. I wouldn't see him because he would leave home by 5 o'clock in the morning, and he may come home at 8:30 at night or 9. But when he took his vacations, he always took them with the children. I can always remember fishing with him. I would always mess up the fishing line, and he would untie the knots and he would bait the hook.
How many children were there in your family?
We had 4 children. I had a sister who was 4 years older than I am, his sister Judy, a wonderful girl, very soft-spoken, sweet girl. My brother Gene is a year older than I am. He's a very famous doctor. Actually, he invented the fiber optic sigmoidoscope, but it's the instrument that diagnosed President Reagan's cancer. It was the first time it was done, so he's very famous from that. And he's one of my heroes. My father's a hero, my brother's a hero. Then there was myself, and then my sister who's 7 years younger, and she's been involved in social work.
Your father, he supported you as a doctor. You were very influenced by that, but also as a family man. Tell me a little bit about how he supported the sons and maybe a little bit about sports.
Well, he always was at every game that we ever played, despite the fact that he would get up early and he would work late. Anytime we played any athletic event, my father was always there. When I was in midget football with the Knoxville Raiders, Daddy even went down on the bus when we played in New Orleans for the World's Championship down there.
That time playing sports was well spent. I understand you were a college athlete as well.
I got a scholarship to play football at the University of Tennessee. Bowden Wyatt was the coach, and I'll always remember him pulling up to the street in front of our house with me in the car, and he said, "Bobby," he said, when I came here to coach at Tennessee, I said I'd get local boys, and said, "And if I don't get you," he said, "my name is Mud." I made the decision right then and there. I'm going to play for the University of Tennessee, and I'm going to try and be the very best football player that I can.
Tell me about how that led you going into med school. What happened? What was the catalyst that got you into med school?
Well, when I had my second knee operated on, I knew it was time to quit playing football and go down to medical school. I was in pre-med at that time, and so I went to Coach White and said, "Coach White, it's time to go to medical school. I've had both knees operated on." He said, "Bobby," he said, "let's not make an emotional decision now. Let's go into rehab and get your knee strong and come back next year." And I said, "Coach, it's time to quit football, go down to medical school."
You also spent some time in the service. You also were in the Army, I understand.
Yeah, I was.
Tell me a little bit about that and where you ended up.
My last 3 months of 3 years of internal medicine, I got drafted into the United States Army. And I was fortunate enough to be able to be stationed in Washington, D.C. It was the 3rd Infantry. It was the color guard of the United States Army. You couldn't stand tall enough. You couldn't shine your shoes bright enough. You couldn't be more military enough, except for the doc. And the doc was able to tell the generals what to do. Now, you didn't really order them around, but if you said you need to take this pill, you need to take it 3 times a day, I need to see you in a month, then you were really the boss in the military. So it was a different structure for the physician in the military.
How did you go into the allergy field?
My last 2 months at the University of Michigan, I had an allergy rotation. So in my allergy rotation, I fell in love with it. There were young people that were coming in miserable, and when they came in miserable, they would walk out feeling good because there was special treatment that you could have for those people that were allergic, and you could get them feeling better, and they were young, and they had their life in front of them. Whereas cardiology was mainly older people and what's your cholesterol at that time. So I fell in love with allergy, and I got drafted into the Army, so I had 2 years to change to what I really wanted to do, whether it was allergy and cardiology. Huge decision in my life. My father had always told me, "Bobby," says, "you go to the school to play football that you want to play, not the school I want you to. And you pick what you want to do in medicine, what you want to do, not what your daddy wants you to do." So I took that, and with a great deal of love for my father, I picked away from cardiology into allergy. Best decision I ever made.
You told me before we started this that you've been married for 50, going on 52 years?
Yeah, 52 years I've been married. She's a wonderful person, wonderful Christian girl, very wise girl. She seemed to know what church we should go to, what school the children need to go, what decisions were good for the children. And she was the reason I think that our children ended up being good children was because of her guidance. For instance, supper time. We had family supper at 6 o'clock, and it was a rule that you had to be there at supper. And I would say, well, Carol, I said, you know, I've got a lot of dictation I need to do back at the office, and I'm really busy at the office. She says, that's fine. Supper will be at 6 o'clock, you will be there, and then you can go back to the office and do your dictation if you want. The children would say, well, Mom, we've got basketball practice, and we don't get over till 6:15. Then you'll have to tell your coach you're going to have to quit the team because supper is at 6 o'clock and you will be here. And so your coach needs to know that you're part of a family. So supper would start at 6 o'clock and we would end up telling stories about what happened during the day, and it would be a 2-hour supper, and we became a very close family unit.
Let's go outside the examining room a little bit into the Dr. Bob when you brought it into television. You brought medical advice to the airways long before the popular doctor shows that's on today. Tell me a little bit about that experience and why.
You know, I ended up being the president of the Knoxville Academy of Medicine, and at that time there was a Friday afternoon show on one of the local television stations called House Call. So for 6 months every Friday I would have a 3-month presentation. And I liked television, I liked teaching, I liked the camera, I liked to be a little bit of a ham. I always wanted to be a Johnny Carson, to be a little bit impish on television. You can't be that as a doctor, but you can certainly communicate with people and you don't have to pretend like you're on the ivory tower. So in 1990, the local NBC station decided that they wanted to have more health, and they decided that they wanted a weekend health show. So I started on Sunday morning, and I was camera friendly. I liked the camera liked me, and so within 2 weeks they said, well, we're starting a live at 5, would you like to do that also? So here I was on Sunday morning and live at 5, teaching people in an exciting venue of television. Within 3 years, I had the opportunity of a 30-minute show, and so we started the Dr. Bob Show in about 1991 or 2. It keeps me up. A lot of physicians watch the Dr. Bob Show as they exercise so that they'll keep up on other phases of medicine. So it's been wonderful for me, and I hope the community has enjoyed it.
Tell me about the long line of Dr. Overholts, because I understand that has extended beyond you and your brother, and then I think you have children that have become doctors, correct?
Yeah, yes. And my father was such a great physician. And then the 2 boys, Dr. Gene and Dr. Bob. Dr. Gene's a year older. He's a world-famous stomach specialist, gastroenterologist, and myself. And so then I had 2 children, and my 2 children, Mark and John. John's an allergist in Nashville, and Mark is an ear, nose, and throat physician here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Both are wonderful, both love people, both do a great job, both are smarter than their daddy. Both of them I'm so proud of.
When do you see Dr. Bob retiring?
I'll know when I can't think well. You know, when I don't think well and I can't interview people and I can't be passionate about it, then I'll quit television. As long as I'm practicing, I'll do television, but I'll know when that time comes.
Dr. Bob, you have lived a phenomenal life.
Yes,
and you know the saying that the cream rises to the top. I think that's so true in your life because you have lived it with such a passion, and you have lived it wanting to do the best and be the best at everything you do. Thank you so much for sitting down with me and for sharing your Tennessee life.
I want to thank you so very much. It's been an honor and a pleasure for me to be on your show.
The honor is ours. Thank you. There are many gardens that are full of beautiful blooms, and then sometimes plants turn into much more. Topiary Joe, as he is called, has taken his green thumb beyond decorative landscaping. A by-chance opportunity with Disney World helped him refine his craft, and now his works are featured in Tennessee and beyond, places like New York, London, and Australia. Companies such as Coca-Cola and Publix have hired him to turn their logo into a real living sculpture. We caught up with Joe as he crafted some new pieces in his Teleco Plains workshop.
I've always wanted to melt things together, and you know, so steel and plant, okay, that's what I wanted to melt, you know, that's what I'm putting together. My interest in horticulture kind of blossomed when I had this position with a horticultural company from Denmark that we introduced hydroponic growing to the US and Canada, and had a project at Disney World, which is still there today in future farming. While there, I saw the topiary sculptures that Disney World was doing at their tree farm and decided to pursue it. You know, I watched their workers doing just what we're doing over here, stuffing the pieces, and thought, I can do that. And I asked the lady if she needed someone to subcontract for them, and she blurted out, sure, we'll pay you $18 a man hour, and this one took us 95 hours, and I'm going like this, going like, okay, you know, and that was in 1992. I figured at that point that I had to make these things correctly, and I asked my father how they made them, how did Disney World make these creatures, and he said that they took this kind of wire steel. We happen to have some rebar there. We happen to have a table vise like the vise that's on the side of the trailer here, and he showed me how to bend the steel. And then he showed me, well, they probably weld it just like this. That is a 1934 design Lincoln arc welder sitting there, and showed me how to weld it. And I put the two together, figuring that that was something like peanut butter and chocolate and of my own sort. I figured that I would be able to, you know, stick with this and be able to make some slightly larger pieces. I wasn't imagining making a 45-foot long T-Rex here in the driveway, and then chopping it all apart, and then reassembling it in Chicago in some guy's backyard. No, I didn't imagine that. It was nice to be able to have that beginning, and it's led me to all different kinds of jobs, you know, because I had that tag on me that I was, you know, builder for them. We've gone from everybody from building 15-foot tall Absolute vodka bottle in St. Thomas, Coca-Cola polar bears 15-foot tall in a mall parking lot in Santiago, Chile. The job that we're doing right now for San Diego, we're going to make most of the material here, stuff it here, send it to there. Then we've got 6 people coming that are going to plant the pieces on property. I often get asked, what's the strangest project? And it's usually the next one, because I have no clue. You know, I never made any lungs before, you know, and there you go, there's 4 sets of them. Topiary Joe has some passions. Yeah, one of my biggest passion is with automobiles. I like old cars. I've restored and had restored something like 200 cars. Basically, my whole business is to support my car habit. The customer list goes corporate, from Absolute to Disney to American Express, Google. Oh yeah. One of the favorite shops was in Negril in Jamaica. I got to spend 3 months on the beach in Negril with, you know, being a guest in one of their suites, and having my shop across the street with 4 Rastas working for me. And I had them dreadlock 480 pounds of nautical rope, and we utilized that to cover Big Bird with. Knoxville Zoo, I contributed Pinky, a 12-foot tall pink flamingo. Other pieces of Topiary Joe that are in Tennessee, mainly in this town here, we have like 15 different sculptures in town on the street. It seems Teleco Plains is a topiary town. The motorcyclists here that come by Topiary Joe, there's like 1 million a year, it seems. They're all going up the Cherahela Skyway and coming back down the Dragon. So we decided to make a nice motorcycle sculpture out here that they can all play on. My topiaries look more like realistic sculptures than not. You know, I want when it's a finished product, I want it to have movement, have form, and be correct. I believe the difference are in the curves, making the pieces anatomically correct. When you add material to them, they actually still look like an animal rather than a puffball. I see myself as being rather busy. I know that I'm going to be extremely busy in this next year, and with some of the aid that I have from some of the people that I know right now, I'm going to be able to do my goal of rolling one of my sculptures across Pebble Beach, the car show there. I want one of my sculptures to roll right across there and go, yeah, that'll make my day.
We hope you enjoy getting outdoors with us to see plants turned into art, as well as learning about the many uses of lavender in Oak Ridge. And we thank Dr. Bob for helping us feel better when outdoor allergens attack and sharing his Tennessee life of medicine and family with us. I'm Vicki Lawson. See you on the next Tennessee Life.
Tennessee Life is sponsored by Next to New, an upscale consignment shop serving Knoxville. nexttonewknox.com. And by The Flower Pot, for over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations. knoxvilleflowerpot.com.